And Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual House Church. Tonight, we will be doing the Torah portion, Numbers Week, number 42, Matot. I'm going to play all of the scripture readings all at once, just not all at the same time, but just I've combined them all into one audio clip. So we'll listen to all of Numbers chapter 30 through 32. Then in the prophets, there's only two in there. It's Jeremiah chapter 1 through chapter 2, verse 28, the book of Judges, chapter 11, 29 through 40, and just two chapters in the book of Matthew, Matthew 5, 33 through 37, and 23, 1 through 39. So we should get through that fairly quickly, probably about a half hour or so. Then after that, there was some New Testament stuff I wanted to add to it, namely Revelation chapters 7 and 14. Didn't get a chance to add it to the workbook yet, nor to the audio clips that we're going to listen to tonight. However, that just so happens to be where Doug Hamp and I are in our quest for truth. We are in chapter 7 of the book of Revelation, which introduces us to the 144,000. And I've got a theory concerning the 144,000 that just so happens to relate to this evening's Torah portion. So you're going to hear that for the first time. It's not been released yet. I haven't even added music to it or anything. Just going to be kind of the raw clip of Doug and I talking through chapter 7 of Revelation and bouncing ideas around about the identity of who these 12,000 from each of the tribes of Israel are and what their purpose is and how that may relate to this evening's Torah portion. And then after that, we'll see what we have time for, and we'll just kind of play it by ear at that point. So let's just go ahead and get started. We'll begin with, I have the Parsha in 60 seconds. It's a ministry out there. The Parsha just is a Hebrew word for study. There's a ministry out there that will distill like the whole Torah portion down to 60 seconds. And so I like to play that as sort of a preview of what we're going to study. So here's the study in 60 seconds.
Shalom and welcome to Parsha in 60 Seconds. Today's portion is from Numbers 32 through 42:42. It is called Matot, which means tribes. Vows made to God were required to be completed unless made by a wife or daughter and the husband or father objected to the vow's terms. Widowed and divorced women could not take back their vows. God told Moses to attack the Midianites for their deeds in Peor. The Israelites attacked, killing every man, including 5 kings and Balaam the prophet. They plundered the Midianites, only keeping virgin women alive. Moses directed the troops to stay outside the camp for 7 days and purify everything, including themselves. The plunder was divided among the tribes. The troops presented 16,750 shekels of gold for Eleazar and Moses and kept the rest. The Reubenites and Gadites desired the land on the east side of the Jordan River for their cattle. Moses was concerned that they would not fight for them when they crossed the Jordan, and that God would not allow their generation to see the land because of it. They agreed that they would fight until all the land was conquered. Moses agreed. The Gadites and the Reubenites built cities, and some leaders of Manasseh conquered cities and settled there. And that is Matot in 60 seconds.
All right, that's the Torah portion in 60 seconds. Now we'll just go ahead and get right into it. Again, I'm going to play the Torah portion, the prophets portion, as well as the New Testament portion. If I can find the clip here in the studio. Oh, there it is. It was hiding. I'm like, where'd it go? I know I uploaded. All right, here's the audio for this evening's study.
Numbers 30.
And Moses spake unto the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying,
This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. If a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. If a woman also vow a vow unto the Lord, and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear her vow, and her bond, wherewith she hath bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand. But if her father disallow her in the day that he heareth, not any of her vows, or of her bonds, wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand. And the Lord shall forgive her, because her father disallowed her. And if she had at all an husband, when she vowed, or uttered aught out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband heard it, and held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vows shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband disallowed her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, and the Lord shall forgive her. But every vow of a widow, and of her that is divorced, wherewith they have bound their souls, shall stand against her. And if she vowed in her husband's house, or bound her soul by a bond with an oath, and her husband heard it, and held his peace at her, and disallowed her not, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband hath utterly made them void on the day he heard them, then whatsoever proceeded out of her lips concerning her vows, or concerning the bond of her soul, shall not stand. Her husband hath made them void, and the Lord shall forgive her. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict the soul her husband may establish it, or her husband may make it void. But if her husband altogether hold his peace at her from day to day, then he establisheth all her vows, or all her bonds which are upon her. He confirmeth them, because he held his peace at her in the day that he heard them. But if he shall any ways make them void after that he hath heard them, then he shall bear her iniquity.
These are the statutes which the Lord commanded Moses between a man and his wife, between the father and his daughter, being yet in her youth in her father's house. Chapter 31. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying,
Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterward shalt thou be gathered unto thy people.
And Moses spake unto the people, saying,
Arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites, and avenge the Lord of Midian. Of every tribe 1,000, throughout all the tribes of Israel, shall ye send to the war.
So there were delivered out of the thousands of Israel 1,000 of every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. And Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, to the war, with the holy instruments and the trumpets to blow in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites, as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi, and Rechem, and Zur, and Hur, and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also, the son of Beor, they slew with the sword. And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives, and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle, and all their flocks, and all their goods. And they burnt all their cities wherein they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire. And they took all the spoil, and all the prey, both of men and of beasts. And they brought the captives, and the prey, and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan near Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priest, and all the princes of the congregation, went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. And Moses said unto them,
Have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. And do ye abide without the camp 7 days. Whosoever hath killed any person, and whosoever hath touched any slain, purify both yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And purify all your raiment, and all that is made of skins, and all work of goat's hair, and all things made of wood.
And Eleazar the priest said unto the men of war which went to the battle,
This is the ordinance of the law which the Lord commanded Moses. Only the gold and the silver, the brass, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that may abide the fire, ye shall make it go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless it shall be purified with the water of separation. And all that abideth not the fire ye shall make go through the water. And ye shall wash your clothes on the 7th day, and ye shall be clean. And afterward ye shall come into the camp.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying,
Take the sum of the prey that was taken, both of man and of beast, thou and Eleazar the priest, and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the prey into 2 parts, between them that took the war upon them, who went out to battle, and between all the congregation. And levy a tribute unto the Lord of the men of war which went out to battle, 1 soul of 500, both of the persons, and of the beeves, and of the asses, and of the sheep. Take it of their half, and give it unto Eleazar the priest for an heave offering of the Lord. And of the children of Israel's half, thou shalt take 1 portion of 50, of the persons, of the beeves, of the asses, and of the flocks of all manner of beasts, and give them unto the Levites, which keep the charge of the tabernacle of the Lord.
And Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded Moses. And the booty, being the rest of the prey which the men of war had caught, was 600,000, and 70,000, and 5,000 sheep, and 62,012 beeves, and 61,000 asses, and 32,000 persons in all, of women that had not known man by lying with him. And the half, which was the portion of them that went out to war, was in number 300,000, and 37,500 sheep. And the Lord's tribute of the sheep was 615, and the beeves were 36,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 312. And the asses were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 301. And the persons were 16,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 32 persons. And Moses gave the tribute, which was the Lord's heave offering, unto Eleazar the priest, as the Lord commanded Moses. And of the children of Israel's half, which Moses divided from the men that warred, now the half that pertained unto the congregation was 300,000, and 30,000, and 7,500 sheep, and 36,000 beeves, and 30,000 asses and 500, and 16,000 persons. Even of the children of Israel's half, Moses took 1 portion of 50, both of man and of beast, and gave them unto the Levites, which kept the charge of the tabernacle of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. And the officers which were over thousands of the host, the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, came near unto Moses. And they said unto Moses,
Thy servants have taken the sum of the men of war which are under our charge, and there lacketh not 1 man of us. We have therefore brought an oblation for the Lord, what every man hath gotten, of jewels of gold, chains and bracelets, rings, earrings, and tablets, to make an atonement for our souls before the Lord.
And Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of them, even all wrought jewels, and all the gold of the offering that they offered up to the Lord, of the captains of thousands, and of the captains of hundreds, was 16,750 shekels, for the men of war had taken spoil every man for himself. And Moses and Eleazar the priest took the gold of the captains of thousands and of hundreds, and brought it into the tabernacle of the congregation, for a memorial for the children of Israel before the Lord. Chapter 32. Now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle, and when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold the place was a place for cattle, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest, and unto the princes of the congregation, saying,
Ataroth and Dibon, and Jazer and Nimrah and Heshbon, and Elealeh and Shebam and Nebo and Beon, even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel, is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle.
Wherefore, said they,
If we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan.
And Moses said unto the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben,
Shall your brethren go to war? And shall ye sit here? And wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them? Thus did your fathers when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up into the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, that they should not go into the land which the Lord had given them. And the Lord's anger was kindled the same time, and he sware, saying, Surely none of the men that came up out of Egypt from 20 years old and upward shall see the land which I swear unto Abraham, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. And the Lord's anger was kindled against Israel. And he made them wander in the wilderness 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the sight of the Lord was consumed. And behold, ye are risen up in your father's stead an increase of sinful men, to augment yet the fierce anger of the Lord toward Israel. For if ye turn away from after him, he will yet again leave them in the wilderness, and ye shall destroy all this people.
And they came near unto him and said,
We will build sheepfolds here for our cattle, and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will go ready armed before the children of Israel, until we have brought them unto their place. And our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities, because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return unto our houses, until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on yonder side Jordan, or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side Jordan, eastward.
And Moses said unto them,
If ye will do this thing, if ye will go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord, until he hath driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, then afterward ye shall return and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel. And this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if ye will not do so, behold, ye have sinned against the Lord. And be sure your sin will find you out. Build you cities for your little ones, and folds for your sheep, and do that which hath proceeded out of your mouth.
And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben spake unto Moses, saying,
Thy servants will do as my Lord commandeth. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our cattle shall be there in the cities of Gilead. But thy servants will pass over, every man armed for war, before the Lord to battle, as my Lord saith.
So concerning them Moses commanded Eleazar the priest, and Joshua the son of Nun, and the chief fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And Moses said unto them,
If the children of Gad and the children of Reuben will pass with you over Jordan, every man armed to battle before the Lord, and the land shall be subdued before you, then ye shall give them the land of Gilead for a possession. But if they will not pass over with you armed, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan.
And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying,
As the Lord hath said unto thy servants, so will we do. We will pass over armed before the Lord into the land of Canaan, that the possession of our inheritance on this side Jordan may be ours.
And Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad, and to the children of Reuben, and unto half the tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with the cities thereof in the coasts, even the cities of the country round about. And the children of Gad built Dibon, and Ataroth, and Aroer, and Aproth, Shophan, and Jazer, and Jogbehah, and Beth-Nimrah, and Beth-Haran, fenced cities, and folds for sheep. And the children of Reuben built Heshbon, and Elealeh, and Kirjathaim, and Nebo, and Baal-meon, their names being changed, and Shibmah, and gave other names unto the cities which they builded. And the children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, went to Gilead, and took it, and dispossessed the Amorite which was in it. And Moses gave Gilead unto Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he dwelt therein. And Jair, the son of Manasseh, went and took the small towns thereof, and called them Havoth-Jair. And Nobah went and took Kenath, and the villages thereof, and called it Nobah, after his own name.
The book of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 1.
The words of Jeremiah the son of Hilkiah, of the priests that were in Anathoth, in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of the Lord came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the carrying away of Jerusalem, captive in the 5th month. Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Then said I, Ah, Lord God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child. But the Lord said unto me, Say not, I am a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak. Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with thee to deliver thee, saith the Lord. Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said unto me, Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out, and to pull down, and to destroy, and to throw down, to build, and to plant. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. Then said the Lord unto me, Thou hast well seen, for I will hasten my word to perform it. And the word of the Lord came unto me the second time, saying, What seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. Then the Lord said unto me, Out of the north an evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, saith the Lord, and they shall come, and they shall set every one his throne at the entering of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against all the cities of Judah. And I will utter my judgments against them, touching all their wickedness, who have forsaken me, and have burned incense unto other gods, and worshipped the works of their own hands. Thou therefore gird up thy loins, and arise, and speak unto them all that I command thee. Be not dismayed at their faces, lest I confound thee before them. For behold, I have made thee this day a defenced city, and an iron pillar, and brassen walls against the whole land, against the kings of Judah, against the princes thereof, against the priests thereof, and against the people of the land. And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to deliver thee. Chapter 2. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith the Lord, I remember thee, the kindness of thy youth, the love of thine espousals, when thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown. Israel was holiness unto the Lord, and the first fruits of his increase. All that devour him shall offend, evil shall come upon them, saith the Lord. Hear ye the word of the Lord, O house of Jacob, and all the families of the house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, What iniquity have your fathers found in me, that they are gone far from me, and have walked after vanity, and are become vain? Neither, said they, Where is the Lord that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, that led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and of pits, through a land of drought, and of the shadow of death, through a land that no man passed through, and where no man dwelt? And I brought you into a plentiful country to eat the fruit thereof and the goodness thereof. But when ye entered, ye defiled my land, and made mine heritage an abomination. The priest said not, Where is the Lord? And they that handle the law knew me not. The pastors also transgressed against me, and the prophets prophesied by Baal, and walked after things that do not profit. Wherefore I will yet plead with you, saith the Lord, and with your children's children will I plead. For pass over the isles of Kittim, and see, and send unto Kedar, and consider diligently, and see if there be such a thing. Hath the nation changed their gods, which are yet no gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which doth not profit. Be astonished, O ye heavens, at this, and be horribly afraid. Be ye very desolate, saith the Lord. For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns, that can hold no water. Is Israel a servant? Is he a home-born slave? Why is he spoiled? The young lions roared upon him, and yelled, and they made his land waste. His cities are burned without inhabitant. Also the children of Noph and the Haphanes have broken the crown of thy head. Hast thou not procured this unto thyself, in that thou hast forsaken the Lord thy God, when he led thee by the way? And now, what hast thou to do in the way of Egypt, to drink the waters of Sihor? Or what hast thou to do in the way of Assyria, to drink the waters of the river? Thy own wickedness shall correct thee, and thy backslidings shall reprove thee. Know therefore, and see that it is an evil thing and bitter, that thou hast forsaken the Lord thy God, and that my fear is not in thee, saith the Lord God of hosts. For of old time I have broken thy yoke, and burst thy bands. And thou saidst, I will not transgress, when upon every high hill and under every green tree thou wanderest playing the harlot. Yet I had planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed. How then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? For though thou wash thee with nitre, and take thee much soap, yet thine iniquity is marked before me, saith the Lord God. How canst thou say, I am not polluted, I have not gone after Balaam? See thy way in the valley, know what thou hast done. Thou art a swift dromedary, traversing her ways. A wild ass used to the wilderness, that snuffeth up the wind at her pleasure. In her occasion who can turn her away? All they that seek her will not weary themselves. In her month they shall find her. Withhold thy foot from being unshod, and thy throat from thirst. But thou saidst, there is no hope, no. For I have loved strangers, and after them will I go. As the thief is ashamed when he is found, so is the house of Israel ashamed, they, their kings, their princes, and their priests, and their prophets. Saying to a stock, thou art my father, and to a stone, thou hast brought me forth. For they have turned their back unto me, and not their face. But in the time of their trouble they will say, arise and save us. But where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Let them arise, if they can save thee in the name of thy trouble. For according to the number of thy cities are thy gods, O Judah.
Judges 11.
Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed over Gilead and Manasseh, and passed over Mizpah of Gilead. And from Mizpah of Gilead he passed over unto the children of Ammon. And Jephthah vowed a vow unto the Lord, and said,
If thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into mine hands, then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering.
So Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hands. And he smote them from Aroer, even till thou come to Minnith, even 20 cities, and unto the plain of the vineyards, with a very great slaughter. Thus the children of Ammon were subdued before the children of Israel. And Jephthah came to Mizpah unto his house, and behold, his daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances, and she was his only child. Beside her he had neither son nor daughter. And it came to pass when he saw her, that he rent his clothes and said,
Alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low, and thou art one of them that trouble me. For I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back.
And she said unto him,
My father, if thou hast opened thy mouth unto the Lord, do to me according to that which hath proceeded out of thy mouth. For as much as the Lord hath taken vengeance for thee of thine enemies, even of the children of Ammon.
And she said unto her father,
Let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down upon the mountains, and bewail my virginity, I and my fellows.
And he said,
Go.
And he sent her away for 2 months, and she went with her companions, and bewailed her virginity upon the mountains. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months, that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow which he had vowed. And she knew no man. And it was a custom in Israel, that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah the Gileadite 4 days in a year.
Matthew 5.
Again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time, Thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be, Yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil.
Chapter 23. Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples, saying,
The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever they bid you observe, that observe and do. But do not ye after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries, and enlarge the borders of their garments, and love the uppermost rooms at feasts, and the chief seats in the synagogues, and greetings in the markets, and to be called of men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But be not ye called Rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father which is in heaven. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. But he that is greatest among you shall be your servant. And whosoever shall exalt himself shall be abased, and he that shall humble himself shall be exalted. But woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. For ye neither go in yourselves, neither suffer ye them that are entering to go in. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayer. Therefore ye shall receive the greater damnation. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye compass sea and land to make one proselyte. And when he is made, ye make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves. Woe unto you, ye blind guides, which say, Whosoever shall swear by the temple, it is nothing. But whosoever shall swear by the gold of the temple, he is a debtor. Ye fools and blind! For whether is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctifieth the gold? And whosoever shall swear by the altar, it is nothing. But whosoever sweareth by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty. Ye fools and blind! For whether is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifieth the gift? Whoso therefore shall swear by the altar, sweareth by it, and by all things thereon. And whoso shall swear by the temple, sweareth by it, and by him that dwelleth therein. And he that shall swear by heaven, sweareth by the throne of God, and by him that sitteth thereon. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone. Ye blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess. Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! Because ye build the tombs of the prophets, and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, If we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves, that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can ye escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets, and wise men, and scribes, and some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, son of Barachias, whom ye slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord.
Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Tell you what, I like that actor. Whoever the actor is playing Jesus. He's really good. Woe unto you, Pharisees and scribes, hypocrites! Yeah, go get them. Anyway, if you haven't figured it out, obviously the portions from the prophets in the New Testament that go along with what we saw in the Torah portion primarily dealt with the issue of swearing a vow, making a vow. And we see that what happened with that guy in the book of Judges, where he said, whatever comes out of the door, I'm gonna sacrifice it. And after he won the battle, he came home and his daughter came out first out of the door, and he's like, oh no. So I guess you understand why Yeshua said later, hey, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay, and don't get all wrapped up in swearing oaths and stuff like that. That's something that's really interesting when you think about it. These days, we don't think along those lines. We don't, I'll just take it back. I didn't really mean that, or I'll, no big deal. But back in Bible times, your word was it. I mean, if you said it, or if you, like where Isaac blesses Jacob, and then Esau shows up, and Isaac realized he was deceived. In our day and age, he's like, oh, my bad. Sorry, he tricked me. So I take it back, and Esau, I'll give you the blessing now. No, he couldn't do it because he had already blessed Jacob, and once it was done, it was done. The word has gone out, and it's going to be performed as spoken. You know what? I think that's something we should be thinking about, because when you see it throughout the scriptures, what's said is said, and what's done is done. And there's I don't know what else to say about that, except that there was a power to the blessings and the curses that came out of people's mouths in Bible times, and nowadays we just kind of let anything come out of our mouth and nobody seems to care. So just something to think about. That's what the focus was for the prophets in the New Testament, tying it in with the Torah portion. When Doug Hamp and I were doing our latest episodes of Quest for Truth, we recorded episode 26, 27, and 28. I just got to edit them and then post them one at a time online, so nobody's seen or heard them yet. But you guys will be the first to hear at least episode 26 tonight, because I think there's some other tie-ins to the Torah portion in the New Testament anyway. And so I'm going to play that for you now. This is Doug Hamp and myself. We're going over the book of Revelation, in particular, Revelation chapter 7.
Hello, welcome to another Quest for Truth. Rob Skiba and Doug Hamp, we are your teachers for this next session. We are very excited to be back with you. Hey, Rob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Doug. Good to be back. It's been a while. Looking forward to it. Although I don't know so much that I'm going to consider myself a teacher. I think I'm a student in progress still. But,
hey, well said. We're all students, aren't we? We never stop learning. If we do stop learning, then we're in big trouble. But we're only teachers insofar as we pass on what we've learned so far, right? Yeah. And that's why we're really on a quest for truth, because we take the Bible. We know the Bible is true. We're not arguing whether the Bible is true. We take that absolutely as truth, as the truth. We're simply trying to understand it so that we can best apply it to our lives, in a very practical way, but also in a more ethereal way when we get into some of these topics when it comes to the end times, the book of Revelation, and thereon. So Hey, let's just jump in. We had our last session live was in Austin, Texas, and
so this is episode 26.
Episode 26. Yeah, so we're now in Revelation 7, cruising right along. Very exciting. Let's go ahead and we'll read some of the passage, and then we'll jump in and we'll talk about it. So, Revelation 7:1. After these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God, and he cried with a loud voice of the 4 angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribe of Judah, sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Asher were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Naphtali were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands, and cried with a loud voice, saying, Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne, and about the elders and the 4 beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces, and worshipped God, saying, Amen, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, Which are these which are arrayed in white robes? And whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore they are before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of waters, and shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. All right. Well,
oh boy.
Another text with nothing to say, right?
Nothing at all.
Yeah, there's so many great things in here. Well, what are we looking at, Rob? What's your take on this?
Well, the 144,000 is certainly one of those hot topics. It's one of those subjects, I mean, I think it's the Jehovah's Witnesses that think that they are the 144,000.
Absolutely. We don't think that?
No, I don't.
Just joking.
We see that these are those who have not defiled themselves with women. I think we see that elsewhere in another chapter, though. But I've understood that to be virgin males from each of the 12 tribes that have not been defiled by women. And when I considered that these are virgin males that haven't defiled themselves with women, I thought, well, nowadays, especially in our culture, it's hard to find that virgin males that haven't, that are, males that are still virgin and young. But when I was thinking about them in terms of being young men, probably of fighting age, 18, 20 maybe, I began to think about the censuses that were taken in the book of Numbers twice. And I began to feel that these 144,000 are actually sentry guards. They may be posted sentry guards around the encampment in the wilderness during the second Exodus.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll just kind of throw in now my 2 cents. I appreciate it, absolutely. Revelation 7, I think, probably the most important thing to see here is that we're talking about ethnic Jews. These are ethnic
Israelites.
Yes, Israelites. Thank you. Yeah, I use the term Jew rather loosely, but I'm talking about Hebrews or Israelites, people who were of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so we're not talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not talking about Africans. We're talking about Israelites, right? These are they're ethnic Israelites. It's so important. Because again, if you take it just literally, it can't be anything else. If you take it allegorically, it can be anything you want.
Anything you want. Yeah,
right. Right. And that's why we cannot take it allegorically. Hey, let me ask you, how many times do you read the newspaper allegorically? You ever done that?
No.
No. Of course not, right? I mean, you're reading, you're like, well, it means what it says. It says it's going to probably rain tomorrow. So, it's probably not talking about, gold or something, or there's no hidden message in it's probably going to rain tomorrow. That's what they're trying to tell you, and so there's no hidden message here. There's nothing that we have to discern and kind of figure out. It's right there. Now, I admit that the book of Revelation does have symbols, but this is not a symbol. There's no symbol needed here. It's just what you see is what you get. And it's very clear, and I think that's why the scripture goes on and it numbers each one of the tribes, so that we can't go and put the Jehovah's Witnesses in there or put some other group in there. And the Jehovah's Witnesses are not the only guys that are guilty of doing that. I mean, I recently had an interesting conversation with some black Africans, and they're suggesting that they are actually the Jews. They're the Israelites. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I mean, let's just be clear. It's not exactly a picnic to be part of the nation of Israel. In fact, it's usually you have persecution and tribulation, and why would you want to be those people? So, I think we just need to be wise. But you mentioned that these are virgins, and just to point out to our listeners that we get that from Revelation chapter 14, where we have basically it's a parallel account, and it says in verse 4, "These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goes." So, that's where we're getting that. By the way, the word defiled doesn't mean that they were rendered morally impure. It's just that they were rendered physically.
No more virgins.
Exactly. And so, there's, again, whenever there's an exchange of bodily fluids or some kind of transfer of bodily fluids, that was considered to be a type of impurity. It didn't mean that you were a bad person or that you broke some law, just that, for a certain amount of time you were segregated. And, hey, don't we have the same thing, right? I mean, if somebody is contagious, we put them in a quarantine. Now, in this case, the people weren't necessarily contagious, but in a time when there was very little soap and antiseptic kind of stuff, it would make sense just to be wise about the exchange of sexual fluids. So anyway, Revelation 14 is the parallel passage, and when we get to Revelation 14, we can of course talk about this more. But something that I really noticed is we're told in chapter 7, it says that I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth or on the sea nor on any tree. And then there's this other angel, and he says you can't hurt anything until they've sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. Now, who else do we learn is going to be sealed on their forehead, or is going to be given some kind of a mark on their forehead?
The mark of the beast is a counterfeit.
Exactly.
And I'm curious about this, because we see in the Torah that it talks about that if you keep the Sabbath and if you obey the commandments and the feasts, that it is a sign, it is a mark between Yahweh and his people. And he mentions it, that it shall be a frontlets of your eyes and on your hand. And so, I began to think, well, okay, the mark of God then are those who are obedient to him, are walking in his ways, doing what he says, and, honoring him. That is a sign. That is a mark. So, I'm wondering if there's something over and above that regarding these 144,000.
Well, I think a good place to start would be in Ezekiel 9:4, because in Ezekiel 9:4, the angel is told to. It says, "And the Lord said unto him, Go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sigh and that cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof." So that's kind of interesting. This whole talk of a mark. What's happening with this mark? But I think as we see, probably the more obvious, in my opinion, the more obvious contrast, or the way that we can really compare this, is with the mark of the beast, as you just mentioned. And according to my research, and I think we're pretty much on the same page in this regard, is at least I think we are. Maybe we're not. We'll have to debate this. I don't know. But anyway, okay. I think the mark of the beast is going to be the taking on by the Antichrist. Is going to take the genetic material, the seed of Satan, and he will then be mingled with that. He'll be transformed, and then he will offer this upgrade to the world. Again, if you haven't been following my stuff, I don't think I'm out to lunch, but I actually get this from Genesis 3:15, where God says, "I will cause enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed." You got Daniel 2:43, where they will mingle themselves with the seed of men, but thou will not adhere one to another. And so those are the two big passages. And then just looking at the term seed is all about DNA, etc. So that is where I'm getting this idea that the Antichrist will be a genetic hybrid of himself and Satan. And so he will then offer that to the world. And what I also find very interesting is in 1 John 3:9, it says, "No one having been born again continues to sin, for the seed of God dwells in him." The word seed there is sperma in the Greek, sperm. We also have in Isaiah 53 verse 10, it says, "Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days." So here the word seed, zerah in the Hebrew, sperma in the Greek, just means sperm. So, how can it be that Jesus would see his sperm? That doesn't make too much sense, unless we're talking about something that is not of a sexual nature, but progeny or seed nevertheless. But as we see in 1 John, this spiritual seed, and I don't mean to say that in a very spiritual kind of sense, but I mean that we will ourselves will be commingled with the Lord. And that is why we read in 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 23, it says, "Having been born again, not of corruptible seed, but incorruptible, through the word of God which lives and abides forever." So we are going to become this new kind of person because we're going to have this new seed. And in fact, Peter even goes on to say that we will be partakers of the divine nature. That just blows me away. We're going to be partakers of the divine nature. So what I see here is that these 144,000, as we read in Revelation 14, it says that these are the first fruits. In verse 4, it says, "These are the ones not defiled with women, and these were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to God and to the Lamb." So if my theory is correct, that they have actually, they are the first ones to get a new nature. they are the first ones to have their new bodies. Just in the same way that those who take the mark of the beast have a counterfeit image, these people are the first ones to have the real thing. And I would suggest that this is why it's important that they're sealed first, because now that they're sealed, they will not die. They are indestructible, if you will, because they have their new bodies. And they are the first fruits, right? I mean, we know that Jesus is called the first fruits of the resurrection. So if these are in a similar nature to Jesus, then I would suggest that they are, of a same state. They're of a same kind of nature. They're partakers of the divine nature. They've gotten their new bodies, their new glorified bodies already. As we read in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. 1 Corinthians 15, there at the end of the chapter, we read that in verse 45, this first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. However, the spiritual is not first, but the natural, and afterward the spiritual. The first man was of the earth, made of dust. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As was the man of dust, so also are those who are made of dust. And as is the heavenly man, so also are those who are heavenly. As we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly man. How exciting, isn't it? I mean, we're going to have these new bodies that are going to be akin. I mean, again, we never become God. I wanted to stress that. This isn't Mormon doctrine. We don't become gods. We don't become exactly as God is. I mean, there's something about God that will always set him apart because he's the creator. He is the one who was and is to come. I don't know, frankly. Of course, I'm not God, but I don't suppose that he could ever create somebody that great. But he could do pretty close. Because he's God, he can create somebody who is like him in practically every respect, minus the, forever in the past, forever in the future kind of thing. But he can make us of a nature that is so similar to his that it's really like Father, like Son. And that's what we have to look forward to. And so I would suggest that these 144,000 occupy a very special place in God's economy. We don't know that they're going to be evangelists. I mean, that is often what we hear from people, that these are going to be Jewish evangelists. Hey, maybe they will be, great. But where do we find that in the text? That's my only question. Where do we find that in the text? And to my...
in the Schofield reference notes.
Exactly. But I've never seen it in the text. That's the trouble, right?
Yeah, not in the biblical text. I'm jesting, I'm joking about the Schofield reference notes, but I mean it is a Darby mentality. It is a Hal Lindsey eschatological view that has been put forth that these guys are, because the church is gone, so now we got to have these guys to witness to the Jews. I'm like, well, it doesn't say that. I appreciate what you're putting forth here, though. About them being, because in Revelation, right there in chapter 7, it talks about them, or is it 7 or 14? I just lost it. Them being the first fruits. Is that 14?
That's in 14.
It's in 14.
Yeah, 14 verse 4.
Yeah, these are the ones who are not defiled by women, for they are virgins. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits to God and to the Lamb. That's interesting. So you're proposing then that these guys are not just singled out as normal humans, but they're actually singled out to get their new heavenly bodies first?
That is my take on it, yes.
Interesting, because then we'll see in Revelation 9 that the scorpion locusts that come up out of the bottomless pit are not able to harm them, because they would already have immortal bodies, if what you're saying is true. But that makes sense to me, just going by that first fruits of God idea right there. And work with me on this, because I want to go back to the book of Numbers, and this is where I was getting some of the things that I was talking about earlier. I had done the Numbers workbook for the Torah study, and on the back of it, I show how the numbers of the Israelites as they were in their encampment lays out like a cross out in the wilderness. You have, interestingly enough, 186,400 total in that first census in the book of Numbers, and excuse me, not total. That's in Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun, and they are on the east of the tabernacle. And of course, the speed of light is 186,280 or 282 miles per second or something like that. So it made me wonder, since it's facing towards the sun, that if that's not representative of light, and of course Judah is the one that produced the Messiah, comes through the line of Judah, and he's the light of the world, so I found that interesting. Then you have Dan, Asher, Naphtali in the north at 157,600. In the south, Reuben, Simeon, and Gad, 151,450. So very similar numbers. And then the least amount is to the west is Ephraim, Manasseh, and Benjamin at 108,100 for a total of 603,550 at the first census, which forms the shape of a cross. Then you have, the rebellion, you have all kinds of stuff, the wandering in the wilderness, and various people getting killed off for various different things. And so you have the second census, which you have a totally different number of people after that. But then if we go to Numbers 31, where they're going to take vengeance on the Midianites for the children of Israel. And he says, so Moses spoke to the people saying, arm some of yourselves for war and let them go against the Midianites to take vengeance for the Lord on Midian. 1,000 from each tribe of all the tribes of Israel you shall send to war. So there were recruited from the divisions of Israel 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. Then Moses sent them to war, 1,000 from each tribe. He sent them to the war with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, with the holy articles and the signal trumpets in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites, just as the Lord commanded Moses, and they killed all the males. They killed the kings of Midian with the rest of those who were killed, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, the 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, the son of Beor, they also killed with the sword. So I just found that as an interesting parallel, or possible parallel, when we've got numbers listed for the tribes of Israel like that. In this case, you have 1,000 from each tribe, but in Revelation we have 12,000 from each tribe. And so if these guys are actually if they actually now have their new immortal bodies, they would make for great sentry guards in the wilderness, if it's following the same model. Because we see similar things throughout the book of Numbers, and I've taken the position as I've started studying the book of Numbers it's a journal of their time in the wilderness, but I think it's also a playbook for those who are going to be living in the time of tribulation. Even Paul talks about that. He says these things were written about them as examples for us, on whom the ends of the ages have come. And so, he's telling us, and of course, they thought they were in the end of the ages, in the first century. So he's saying, hey, these things are happening to the stories in the Torah aren't just stories, they're not just history. While they are that, they also serve as an example for us. And, I think there's 42 camps that they ended up, different places where the pillar of fire and smoke moved them to, and we got 42 months, and there's a lot of very interesting parallels that have led me to believe that if I really want to understand Revelation, I've got to understand the Exodus, the whole thing, because the plagues are almost exactly the same as the plagues in Egypt, and I've done up charts that show the parallels of the two, Exodus and Revelation. So, and the gods are the same, especially if the thesis is true that it's well, I know you have a slightly different view on Apollyon. I liken Apollyon to Nimrod, and Nimrod to Osiris, and Osiris was what the pharaohs thought themselves to be. Then the war against the gods is even the same. It's just all amped up. So if that's the case, then, and these guys are now with immortal bodies, they would make for some really interesting sentry guards. And also, looking at this passage where you got 1,000 from each tribe, it specifically talks about that they're warring against Midian, and they wiped out Balaam. Well, if you look at the story of Balaam, they're all in the wilderness, and they're saying, Melech Bo. They're saying, come king. They're in the wilderness camped out, and they're rejoicing, man. They've had victories and stuff, and they're saying, "Come, King, Melech Bo." Meanwhile, camera shifts. Meanwhile, up in the mountains, you got this other king trying to get Balaam to curse the people of God, and Balaam's like, "I can't do it. I can't curse what God's blessed. I can't do it." So, Balaam was unsuccessful. In fact, when he tries to give curses, he ends up giving blessings, and the king gets ticked off at him. And then finally, Balaam starts prophesying, and he basically prophesies the end times wars that are going to happen. They're in the book of Numbers. And since he wasn't successful at prophesying against Israel, what did he do? He got the Midianite women to go in there and seduce the men, and it was through that act that he got the Israelites to disobey God. That's why the Nicolaitans are likened unto Balaam in the book of Revelation we've covered elsewhere. But the fact that they're going up against Midianites caught my attention, because I was looking in Genesis after Sarah dies, and I believe it was shortly after Isaac got married to Rebekah, that Abraham marries Keturah, who was a Canaanite. And that just flipped me out, man. Of course, with all the Nephilim research and everything, we do. I'm like, he married a Canaanite? Are you kidding me? In his old age. And it says he had 6 sons by her. He had Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. And Midian, of course, caught my attention, because Midian, his name means strife. And then we later see that they certainly did cause strife for the children of Israel and caused all kinds of problems. So I'm looking for these parallels, and that's my reasoning for why I think that they may be sentry guards. I see no reason to believe that they're evangelists, although technically we all are, in some way, shape, or form, to be leading people to the kingdom, through the kingdom message.
Right.
So in that sense, sure, but I don't think that that's their sole job. Using these as parallels, it seems like they may be sentry guards.
Is there anything in Scripture, the book of Revelation specifically, that would suggest that these are going to be evangelists? I mean, do we see that anywhere?
That I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important to understand that. Could they be evangelists? Well, yeah, like you said, everyone should be an evangelist, right? But it's not specifically stated what their role is. And I think the other trouble is, probably the chapter breaks have gotten us into a lot of trouble.
Amen.
In the book of Revelation, because John is just seeing, we've talked about this before. It's kind of like going into a TV control room, right, where you go onto a TV studio and maybe you have 20 different monitors in front of you, right? Now you'd say, okay, explain what you just saw. Okay, well, I saw a monitor and it had this happening on it. Okay, what else did you see in the monitor? Well, this happened and this happened and this happened. Okay, and I also saw this other monitor, and in this monitor all these different things were happening. That's kind of what's happening to John. He's getting a lot of information. He's not necessarily telling us the chronology that it will happen in. He's telling us the chronology in which he saw it. That's the distinction. And again, it's not easy to commit that to paper. I mean, it's one thing. Our eyes can take in many things at once, right? I mean, of course, our eyes can only focus on one thing at a time, but even on a screen, we can appreciate a lot of different things. Our ears, by contrast, can hear a whole bunch of things, but still, if we're going to focus, if we're going to really pay attention, it can only be the one thing. Sometimes I try to listen to 2 conversations at the same time. It seems to work for a couple of seconds, and then suddenly I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm in neither conversation, so I've got to choose a conversation and just go with that. I can't be in 2 conversations at the same time. So I think the same thing is happening here in Revelation, is that John is seeing just a whole array of different events that are taking place, and who knows, maybe they're playing before his eyes just like a TV screen, but then he has to commit them one by one to paper. And of course, I do believe the Holy Spirit guided him in the the penning of this these visions, but still you have to put them down one by one. So in Revelation 14, I would say that's just it's a parallel. It's sort of an addendum to what he saw before, but it kind of gives us somewhat of the time frame. It says, "I looked and behold a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having his Father's name written on their foreheads." So they've now been sealed, that's for sure at this point. And now they're with the Lord. There's no question about that. And of course we learn that they're virgins, they're the first fruits, and they're pretty amazing. So Mount Zion, I think that's very significant because I don't see Mount Zion is on planet Earth per se, at least not on the dirt part of planet Earth, but I see it on the spiritual side of planet Earth, and I hope that makes sense. But as much as I've talked about the veil between heaven and earth, I would suspect that maybe our people are kind of up on what I'm suggesting. But as a reminder, there is a veil, like a force field, between where we are and where God and the angels and everybody else is. And this veil, it's like a force field. It's going to come down one day. It's a veil. It will be unveiled. We see lots of scriptures that reference that. We see that in Revelation 1:7, talking about the unveiling of the Lord Jesus. We see it in 2 Thessalonians 1:7 and 8, when the Lord Jesus is revealed from heaven. We even see it in Luke 19, verse 30, talks about in the day that the Lord Jesus is revealed or unveiled, apocalyptite. So we have it in many places where it talks about his unveiling. And what I see here is that these 144,000, because they are the first fruits, because they have their new body, they can exist in either realm. They're not, they didn't die, but they now exist, and they can go to the other side. I don't know if they've gone through the veil per se, but they're, they are on the other side, as it were, and they are standing with the Lord on that heavenly side of Mount Zion. Incidentally, Mount Zion, we're told in Hebrews 12:22, it says, "But you've come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem." So it tells us that Mount Zion is in fact the new Jerusalem. It is the new Jerusalem. And so they're standing on the heavenly Mount Zion, not on the earthly Mount Zion. One day those will be reunited. They'll be one in the same place. But here I would suggest that these are looking at the heavenly Jerusalem. And I think something that would really help to make that clear is in chapter 7, because there we see all these people that are before the throne. And it says in verse 15, "Therefore they are before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will dwell among them." So now, I could be wrong about this, but at this point, I would suggest that this temple of God is still in the New Jerusalem. We read in Revelation 21, John says, "I saw the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven, adorned like a bride," and he says, and there was no temple in it. Well, if you look in other passages in the book of Revelation, there is a temple in the New Jerusalem. So here it seems that this temple is still in this city, and that these people are in there. They're going to serve him in that place, and one day that temple will be removed from the city, and it will be put on the dirt, on the planet itself. So those are just some of my insights on that. I'm not absolutely sure about the temple, but I would suggest that this makes a pretty good case that we're looking at a time where this is still in heaven. This is still on the other side of the veil, if you will, and we're still waiting for that to come down.
Yeah, I was thinking still along the lines of the 144,000 and what their purpose is at this point. because this is where we first encounter them, is in Revelation 7. And this is everything that we've done so far is really a build-up, because the battle's about to go full force, full on. By the time we get to Revelation 9, I mean the battle's really going. And I really appreciated your insight on the new body thing, being the firstborn of many right there. First fruits to God and to the Lamb. Now think about this. Go back to Exodus 13. If you go to Exodus 13, it's all about the redemption of the firstborn.
Mm-hmm.
You got the festival and unleavened bread, the consecration of the firstborn, in chapter 13, verses 1 through 14. And then in verse 15, beginning of verse 15, I'm reading from the International Standard Version because it uses some interesting words here. It says, "And when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed every firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of humans to the firstborn of animals. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord every male that first opens the womb, but I redeem every firstborn of my sons. It is to be a sign on your hand and an emblem on your forehead, because the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a strong show of force." Verse 17, "When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them along the road through the land of the Philistines, even though it was nearer, because God said, if the people face war, they may change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people round about way of the desert toward the Reed Sea," it says, I believe it's Red Sea. "The Israelites went up from the land of Egypt in military formation." After the redemption, after you got people marked on their forehead and hands, he leads them out in military formation. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, which I think is really interesting too, because Joseph had made the Israelites take this solemn oath. "God will certainly take notice of you, and then you must carry my bones up with you from here." They left Sukkoth and camped in Etham at the edge of the desert. The Lord went in front of them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so they could travel both day and night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. And if you look in Revelation 12, where you see that God himself goes to protect the woman who goes off into the wilderness, right? So I'm seeing this as like a great big repeat, man. Right down to your insight on them being the first fruits of God to the Lamb. And if they're like, these supercharged new body, invincible immortals, that's pretty awesome, because I believe that the bad guy is going to have some people who have purchased a counterfeit immortality on his side. And the fact that we have in Numbers, you got 1,000 from each tribe going to war against Canaanite offspring, and then you have 12,000 from each tribe in the latter days. The latter reign's greater than the former reign. I don't know, man. I'm seeing this as like a build up to a really pretty amazing battle, but also in a military formation. You follow? You see what I'm saying?
No, I'm getting you. I'm liking this. And of course, one of the major keys for understanding the book of Revelation is that it's all about the Israelites. I mean, they are front and center. Again, you and I have talked about this. As Gentiles, we're grafted in. We get to become part of that. So it's not like we're out on the street or anything.
We're going to be in those formations.
Well, yeah. I mean, all I'm suggesting is let's let the hub, start with the nation of Israel, and we can work our theology from there. But let's just let them be front and center, and God will work out the specific details of who's in, who's not, and who's doing what. But we're in. That's the good news. But here it's specifically of the tribes of Israel. And so it's just so important to see that. The other thing is, as we've mentioned before, the book of Revelation is not chronological. I'll tell you what, if you take it chronologically, boy, you're going to be confused. Now, you may not think you're confused. I didn't quite know how confused I was until I realized that it wasn't chronological. But suddenly I'm like, oh my goodness, I see it. It's not chronological. So, I mean, even people that take it chronologically, they say, well, there's a number of pauses in the book. Hey, the whole thing is a big pause. I mean, it's really Revelation chapter 6 is giving us the big bird's eye picture. But I tell you what, by the time we get to the seventh seal, it's over. Okay, it's over. And that's why when we get to Revelation chapter 8, verse 1, it says, when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. This is it. It's over. Okay, then he's on to a new set of visions where you have the seven angels with the trumpets, and of course, ultimately the seven bowls, and those are simply more details of what takes place within the context of the six seals, which I think most of it happens in the sixth seal, which is quite interesting because it's the number of man. But by the time we get to the seventh seal, it's over. And then, of course, Revelation chapter 9, we're seeing what's happening. We're seeing what's going to happen with the Antichrist, with Satan, and Abaddon, whoever he may be. We'll debate that when we get there. But so Revelation chapter 7 is simply another vantage point of some of the players. Now, it's not been exactly clear, and I understand why, because it's not exactly clear to me what the 144,000 are going to do. Whether or not they're evangelists is really anyone's guess, but the text does not specifically say that. It just doesn't say that. So I think we have to be careful to not put that into the mouth of the Apostle John here, but just say, well, maybe they're evangelists, but maybe, as you're suggesting, Rob, maybe these are sentinels. These are royal guards. I think that'd be very cool. Jesus, like, he's got his own special force, right? And they may do. I mean, the fact that they're Jewish makes you think, maybe they're going to do things for the nation of Israel, right? I mean, that would make more sense to me, that they're actually going to be people that God is going to raise up to help protect the nation of Israel. Since Michael apparently is out of the picture for whatever reason.
Well, he goes up to heaven, Revelation 12.
Well, yeah, I mean, that certainly takes us back to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, doesn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Until
Daniel 12 too.
Well, exactly, in Daniel 12. Maybe we should just kind of go there really quick.
While you're doing that, I'm excited, dude. This is so crazy. I was thinking, where's the second census? And I looked it up real quick. It's the second census of Israel is in Numbers chapter 26, verses 1 through 4. Well, actually, the whole chapter, really, but 1 through 4 is what I want to focus on. It says, and it came to pass after the plague that the Lord spoke to Moses and Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saying, take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel from 20 years old and above by their fathers' houses, all who are able to go to war in Israel. So Moses and Eleazar the priest spoke with them in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho, saying, take a census of the people from 20 years old and above, just as the Lord commanded Moses and the children of Israel who came out of the land of Egypt. And the fact that they're on the plains of Moab there, that's just crazy cool too. Because they certainly had their battles with the Moabites and stuff. I don't know, man, because these are 20 years old, and above, but of fighting age. That's where they're being very specific. I mean, it's fighting age. Mm-hmm. And, children, unless you're talking about pedophilia or something, they don't generally have any sexual activity going on. It's not till you reach puberty, and in your teen and 20 years that you start thinking about, messing around with the opposite sex, and so this whole idea that they are virgins who have not yet defiled themselves with women, especially in this day and age. Now, granted, if somebody's trying to walk and live a godly life, then they should be saving themselves for marriage anyway, regardless of how old they are. But statistically speaking, I think we're talking about 20-year-olds, late teens, 20s, is what we may be looking at here. So that's perfect age range anyway for a man who's trying to live a godly life, not to be messing around with women yet until they get married. But also we have these repeated stories in the book of Exodus where whenever they're numbering the tribes, I mean, that's where I'm also looking for parallels. Okay, Revelation, we have the numbering of tribes, people in the tribes, where I would look for parallels for that. They're being numbered for war. throughout the Torah, and 20 years old and above. So I don't know, man. I'm seeing a really cool picture of when the woman goes out in the wilderness. You've got these 144,000 glowing, shining, new-bodied, like immortal warrior guys, maybe escorting us out there with the pillar of fire, taking us out in the wilderness, just like he did the first time.
Well, yeah, and I think something that might underscore that is we read in chapter 14, we're told that there's going to be an angel that's going to be flying around in heaven, warning people not to take the mark of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
So, the fact that there will be an angel going around, and it's not at all uncommon. This is Revelation 14, verse 6. It says, "Then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, tribe, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth and the sea and the springs of water." Another angel saying, Babylon is fallen. And then a third angel, and it says, "If anyone worships the beast in his image and receives the mark on his forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink the wine of the wrath of God." And of course, he's going to have a pretty bad day after that. So, people say, well, that's impossible, that you can't have angels flying around in heaven, Why not? I mean, really, why not? Why can't we have angels flying around in heaven? Remember, what has happened to this point is that you have Satan has been cast to the earth. All the fallen angels have been cast to the earth. So they're physically, bodily here. They're not hiding out behind that veil anymore. They're not camouflaged. They're not invisible. They are now visible. Now, I don't know if they look scary. I don't know if they look like, angels of light. I would guess that they're probably like angels of light, but I have no idea. So again, that's my speculation. So to have, a good angel flying around saying, hey, watch out, don't take of the mark of the beast. Because remember, the mark of the beast is so incredibly serious. You get one shot at this, everyone, and then it's lights out. There's no mercy. There's no grace. There's no going back. You are done if you take that. And, so this is a very, very serious thing, and God is giving mankind ample warning not to do that. So, who knows? There's clearly more in the book of Revelation than really anybody has been able to scratch the surface of. And, the identity of the 144,000 may be a massive key that's going to unlock a lot of things for us. For me, I happen to see that, wow, that they're being sealed. They're the first fruits of God. We're called the first fruits of God. I mean, Jesus is the first fruit, right? Yeah. And so now these, I would argue, have their new body. They may have a special role that is not quite clear. My suggestion why it may not be clear is that God might be keeping that a closely guarded secret. It might be that these are going to be special agents, and he really can't tell anybody what they're going to do. He's got to basically keep a lid on that so that, people can't figure it out, right? Or so, basically so Satan and company cannot figure it out. I mean, that's the real issue. So, I don't know. There's, obviously we could, go on and on and on, but looking at the parallel of Revelation 14 is incredibly important to really get a good grasp of what's going on here, and understanding that this book is not written chronologically. So, moving on from that, unless you have anything else you want to suggest.
I've got one more quick comment on chapter 14, and then we probably got to wrap this episode. I think this one's done, but let's continue it in the next one. We have, you're talking about, it's funny, you were just reading from the New King James, and of course King James and New King James is kind enough to put inserted words in italics.
Yes.
But we also, when we're writing and stuff, if we want to stress a word, on Facebook we're stuck with caps when everybody thinks you're yelling, but when you're writing a book or whatever, you can stress a word with italics, And I just thought it was interesting that it's an inserted word, so it's in italics, but I looked at it as a stressed word, like for emphasis. In verse 9, where it says, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead, his right there is italics, because I just thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. It's an inserted word, but if you stress it, like we might do for emphasis, and receives his mark on his forehead or hand, then you're stuck, man. You're going to end up drinking of the wine of the wrath of God, And going back to what I was reading earlier from the book of Exodus, and what is a mark of God, a sign on your forehead and hand, that being obedient, to his commandments, you have kind of a reiteration of that in verse 12 of chapter 14. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And then I heard a voice from heaven saying, right, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works follow them. That's some cool stuff right there.
Amen. Amen. Hey, you're right. That does wrap it up for this episode 26 of Quest for Truth. Everyone, we're on a quest for truth. We don't know. We don't have all the answers. We don't know all the facts. We know the book that does. It is the Bible. We're very much agreed on that. Rob and I started this program because we don't agree on everything. We agree on the major points, but there's some minor things that we disagree on, and we think that's actually a great opportunity to have a format like this where we can just sort of hash it out in a friendly format. And every one of us, as we dig into the Word, we're gonna discover things that we say, why doesn't my pastor know this? Why doesn't my best friend know this? Why do people not see this? Hey, who knows? Maybe you're the first person in 300 years to see that. But probably somebody along the way saw that maybe they didn't have opportunity to mention it. But God is the one who gives us the insight if we continue to study His Word and to take it literally. That is the big key to understanding it in just such an exciting way, is taking it literally, and God will show us things. And so we just want to continue to talk about these things that we've learned, and as we do, we will continue to share them with you. So stay in the Word. That's the best place to be. We do hope you tune in next time as we continue on this quest for truth.
All right, that concludes the commentary from Doug Hamp and I on Quest for Truth. And I was kind of poking in the chat room every few minutes and just kind of checking in there. And I saw that somebody going by the name of Paradigm wrote something interesting in the chat room. 144 is the gematria of Kadem, east, as in east of Eden. 233 is the gematria of Etz Hakem, tree of life. Two numbers side by side in the Fibonacci sequence. That really caught my attention because I've been writing some things in the new blog called the Yahuwah Triangle, Great Pyramid, and Commandments of Eden. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this person on right now from area code 580. Who do I have here?
Hey, how you doing tonight? It's Keith with Paradigm Radio. How are you?
Keith, I'm great, man. Thanks for coming on.
You betcha.
So, yeah, we got about 20 minutes left, maybe enough to open up Pandora's box.
Really?
But you caught my attention. So what are you thinking, sir?
Okay, well, it might not hurt to explain a little bit about phi at first. Probably everybody has heard of pi, which is the ratio from the diameter of a circle to its circumference. Probably maybe not as many people have heard of phi. It's also a Greek letter that describes this mathematical ratio. And in essence, it's usually abbreviated as 1.618 to 1. And so, like, it always amazes me when I watch maybe a debate between a Darwinist Darwinian evolutionist and a creationist that this subject is not brought up. Because in essence, we see the fingerprint of God throughout nature with this consistent ratio. Like whether we're talking about our fingerprint, an embryo, or the Milky Way, we see this mathematical spiral throughout nature. A lot of things that we think are random are actually not. Many times, kind of like the term junk DNA, things that we don't understand many times, we think of that they're just random and haphazard if it's beyond our ability to understand sometimes. And so we might look at a tree and think, well, those branches and leaves just kind of grow at random, but actually they grow in the most logical and beneficial way to receive the greatest amount of sunlight and rainfall, etc. And so there was a guy named Leonardo of Pisa, sometimes called Leonardo Fibonacci. He's got a number of names. And he got to theorizing about rabbits producing. And he developed, or at least it's attributed to him, what's known as the Fibonacci sequence. And so if I were to say, write down a string of numbers, if I were to write 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or 3, 6, 9, people would look at that and say, okay, that's very logical, sequential, that makes sense. But if I wrote maybe 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, 233, that initially might look or sound like a bunch of gibberish, but it's not. It's actually a higher order. And so when we look throughout nature, for instance, a sunflower, if we count the rows going one direction, let's say we count the rows going one direction and it's that number 55, the other row will either be 34 or it'll be 89. Or if we count the rows and there's 144, the other row will be either 233 or it'll be 89. It'll be one of those numbers in this Fibonacci sequence. And so this number 144 that we see in the book of Revelation chapter 7, also in 14, is a Fibonacci number. And not only is it 12,000 squared, but the number 144 is one of these Fibonacci numbers right next to 233. And so when we go back to Genesis, it said, and God planted a garden eastward in Eden. And the Hebrew word there for east or eastward is the word kedem, and it's spelled with the kuf, the dalet, and the mem. And so that will be a total value of 144. And then the next number, 233, happens to be the numerical value of Eitz HaChaim, or tree of life. And so I thought that was kind of neat when I began to discover these things.
Wow. I mean, a lot of this is over my head. I'm not a math guy.
Me either. I made an F in algebra, so don't sweat it.
Okay, then we're on the same page in that regard. It's like as soon as they start trying to tell me that I can add, multiply, divide, and subtract letters, I checked out. Man, I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't.
Okay, well, don't because, like I said, I mean, I absolutely hated math in school, but I think because I was really a right-brained kid, and it sounds like you're probably more that way too.
Yeah, I drew pictures of stuff during algebra class.
Yeah, me too. I was usually drawing or something and not really paying too much attention. But if the teacher could have explained math this way to me, I think it would have made a big difference. If they could have said, okay, Keith, you see all of this as just meaningless, abstract numbers and equations that really have no value or no meaning. But Keith, this is a language, just like Hebrew. Mathematics is a language, and those numbers are speaking. Okay, and if you don't mind, can we talk about pi for just a second? And I'll
please. Yeah, go ahead.
And again, I'm not a mathematician. Like I said, I did terribly in math, but I began to see certain mathematical patterns in the Scripture, And specifically, it kind of began with Revelation. So I started asking these questions. I grew up probably like a lot of people in Protestant Christianity as a Baptist, had read a lot of books on prophecy and seen people on TV, and so I thought I had a pretty good handle on things, probably like a lot of people. And the more I studied, so much of my theology began to be overturned. It just didn't fit with what I was seeing. And so I came to the conclusion, I've got to be honest and admit here, I don't understand any of this. I've been taught all of this, and I've been indoctrinated, but I've got to admit, I really don't know anything. And so I began to pray and ask the Almighty to begin to open my eyes and show me. And so I felt like right away He began to sort of chastise me for my assuming, for my arrogant assuming of so much. And so one of the first questions was kind of some of the things you were addressing. What makes you think all of this is chronological? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm like, wow, well, how could it not be? Wouldn't it be chronological? Another question, what makes you think everything you're reading is in the future from you? Mm-hmm. Another question was, what makes you think that everything you're reading is linear? I'm like, well, linear, how could it be anything else other than linear? And so I began to notice some mathematical patterns throughout the Bible. And, of course, usually the first time we see something, whether a number or a letter or a word, it sets a precedent, and it gives us insight into that letter or number or whatever it might be. And so we understand that God made the heavens and the earth, and He rested upon the seventh day, or the Sabbath. And so the number 7 has to do, a lot of people say it's a perfect number, has to do with completion and all that, and it does. But it has to do with other things as well. And during that time frame, He actually did 22 different works of creation. And so we begin to see these numbers together a lot, or contrasted. For instance, from Adam to Jacob, who became Israel, a very important guy, as you know, that because he is the guy that God decided, I'm going to call my name after this guy. I'm going to be known as the God of Israel. And from Adam to Israel, there were 22 generations. Of course, you're aware that there's 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet from Aleph to Tav, 22 chapters in the book of Revelation. When Joseph, who is one of the best messianic types of anyone in the Scripture, who gives us insight into that aspect of Messiah ben Yosef, he was 17 when his brothers betrayed him. And of course, it was actually a guy named Judah, or Judas. It's the same name as the guy who betrayed Yeshua for silver, Judah. And so he was sold into slavery when he was 17 years old. And 17 is the 7th prime number. So it's only divisible by 1 in itself. And then Joseph was separated from his father, the beloved of the father. Just, keep in mind, he's a picture of Yeshua, or of Messiah. They were separated for 22 years, and then they were reunited, and they spent 17 more years together. Again, that's the 7th prime number. The menorah. We have the 7 candlesticks, but upon those candlesticks are decorations of almond knobs. And so each of the 6 candles, there are 6. 6 times 3 is 18, but the center lampstand, or the shamash, has 4. 18 plus 4 is 22. So we have those numbers, 22 and 7 again. There are, in the time of Moses in the wilderness, the golden calf incident, there was a remnant who did not get drawn into that idolatry. And so we see in Revelation, to the letters there, it said, I've got this against you because you have those there that hold to the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel to eat things sacrificed unto idols and commit fornication. And then later we have an assembly that I have this against you because you tolerate that woman Jezebel, who who seduced the sons of Israel to eat things sacrificed unto idols and to commit fornication. So Balaam was the arch enemy of Moses. Jezebel was the arch enemy of Elijah, the two witnesses, the law and the prophets, the two olive trees. The golden calf incident, after the revelation at Mount Sinai, there was a remnant that did not get involved in the idolatry, and that was the Levites. And in the census, it tells us there were 22,000 Levites. Now, in Elijah's time, when Israel again had gotten involved in idolatry, Elijah thought he was the only one. But it says, no, I've reserved for myself 7,000 who have not bowed the knee to Baal. And Rav Shaul, or Paul, comments on this in Romans chapter 11. He says, just like that 7,000, there's a remnant to this very day according to the election of grace. And so that number 7 also has to do with the bride and a remnant, because the word finish, by the seventh day God had finished the work which he had been doing, is the word kalah, which is also the same word as bride. And so there was a remnant of 22,000 that did not worship the calf in Moses' time. There was a remnant of 7,000 in Elijah's time that did not get involved in the idolatry. So pi is the ratio from the diameter of a circle, like if we draw a line across it, to the outside, its circumference, which may not really mean anything, but it should. Let's use a different word instead of ratio. Let's use the word relationship. Pi is the relationship from the diameter of the circle to its circumference. Or put another way, it's the relationship, usually abbreviated as 3.14, from the linear to the cyclical. Pi is the relationship from the linear realm to the cyclical realm, from choice to destiny, from law to grace, from finite to eternal. But if we wanted to represent pi not as a decimal but as a fraction, the closest way we could do that would be 22 over 7. And so in the book of Revelation, we have 22 chapters, and obviously the most prominent number there is the number 7. And there's a number of ways you could break that down. One time I did try not to repeat any of these things, and I came up with 17. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But again, that's the 7th prime number. So it kind of changes the paradigm of the concept we have of Revelation. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. They were trying to understand this message they were given by these ETs. Nobody could figure it out. And then someone had the idea, wait a second, let's project this thing as a hologram. We've been trying to read it in 2 dimensions. Let's try to understand it as a hologram in 3 dimensions. I think we've been trying to understand Revelation linearly and only in 2 dimensions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean that's. I don't know how much you've heard of the show that Doug Hamp and I have been doing, but we've been quickly realizing that there are a lot of overlaps.
Yes. I wished I would have. I'll have to go back and listen to some of the archives that you've got on this, because it sounds like you've kind of been coming at this in a similar way to what we have lately.
Oh yeah, we've done. Well, that was episode 26. So I think we actually started Revelation somewhere around episode 4, maybe. And we've just kind of been going verse by verse, looking at it and looking for parallels and overlaps and stuff like that. Now, going back to what caught my attention, how do you feel the 144,000 relate to Eden If you do, I'm not sure you do. That's what I got.
Well, I think it would. When we look at the dimensions of the New Jerusalem, which we understand Mount Zion and New Jerusalem are directly connected, we'll see that the wall is going to be 144,000 cubits around that New Jerusalem over in Revelation 21. I think that there's a lot of neat aspects to it. In Revelation 14 there, you mentioned Hebrews 12 earlier. In Hebrews 12, the writer contrasts Mount Sinai with Mount Zion. And he says, he described what happened at Mount Sinai, and he makes comparisons and contrast. And he says, you're not come to that mountain, Mount Sinai, but you've come unto Mount Zion, unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to the innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn. And what does it say? Which are written in heaven, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and so on. So if we keep that idea in mind, and we go back and look at Mount Sinai, we understand that traditionally that's believed to have occurred on the 6th of Sivan, being Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, or better known as Pentecost. And so when we go over to Revelation, we're going to see some of those themes in that passage there. And notably, if you go back and you mentioned the being not defiled with women, if you go back to Exodus 19, in preparation for the revelation at Mount Sinai, for 3 days they had to go through an immersion, wash their clothes and wash themselves and go through a mikveh, and come not near your wives.
Yeah.
For 3 days, okay. And it says, these are they who are not defiled with women. Okay. Well, at Sinai, which there's a comparison with this, Mount Zion, they were not with their wives for 3 days. Now, and some might say, well, okay, the concept of virgins there, and I heard you mention a little bit about that. I think when we look at the language of the Scripture in other places, such as in, I believe it's in 1 Corinthians chapter, I think it's 2 Corinthians, maybe 2 Corinthians chapter 11. I always get that backwards. I think it's 2 Corinthians. Yes. Would to God that you bear with me a little in my folly, and indeed bear with me. For I am jealous over you with a godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Messiah. Now he's speaking to the Corinthians here as a group or as a whole, and he says that my goal was and is to present you as a chaste virgin to the Messiah. And certainly, I'm sure that 100% of those people are not literally virgins. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Messiah. And so when we go back and see what happened to Eve, the adversary, the serpent, got her questioning the commandments of God and convinced her that it was okay to break the commandments of God with impunity. And he used the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. When the woman saw that the tree was good, or pleasant to the eyes, was good for food, and to make one wise, she took and ate. And so he goes on to talk about, so if someone comes who preaches another Yeshua or another Jesus or another gospel or another spirit, so he's warning about this counterfeit thing. But he's talking about this all in the context of a betrothal or espousal of a chaste virgin, and makes the comparison to. So if we look at a lot of that language, and then we go back to Revelation chapter 11, I think that means that they weren't intimate. Adultery or idolatry is spiritual adultery. and these people kept themselves chaste unto one husband.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I'm gonna have to go back and look at it because it's. I mean, when I looked at Revelation 14, it looks like they've never had relations with women before.
Right. But that's what I was saying. Like that passage I just looked at there in 2 Corinthians 11.
Well, I mean, that's if we spiritualize it, I can
which
certainly
I think. Right. I mean, which I think that's what he was doing. That's what when we talk about taking the Bible literally, let's say this verse for instance, real quick, just to kind of throw some things out there to think about. And no man might buy or sell except he has the mark or the number of his name and so on. Right. But Yeshua in chapter 2, I believe it is, of Revelation. No, I'm sorry, chapter 3, speaking to the church of Laodicea, he says, I counsel you to buy of me gold tried in the fire, and raiment, white raiment, that you may be clothed, and eye salve that you may see. So, is there a store somewhere that Yeshua owns that we can go purchase this gold and eye salve and clothing that he sells?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That
sure.
I like to bring these questions up and see how a lot of times we've been guided into taking certain passages literally and other passages not literally, with not necessarily thinking through it.
I think thinking through it, you can determine what you should and what you shouldn't take literally. In other words, you can look at what you just said and say, okay, does he have a store where you go and purchase these things, or is he giving an allegory? And then there are other places where you can look at it and say, well, I mean, looks to me like it's being pretty straightforward. I could just take it the way it says it.
Sure. But, I think a lot of times we do that based upon our pre-programming or our conditioning. And it's one thing, and I can tell you've done a lot of studying and you think about things and you question stuff. A lot of people don't, but even if we get to that point, we start out thinking like we've been trained to think and interpret. And so when it comes to numbers, most people, like in Revelation, the 42 months, they're going to take that literally, or the 1,260 days, they're going to take that literally. But they're not going to take it literally in the letters to the church, you'll have tribulation 10 days. Or they're not going to take Daniel 70 weeks literal, right? And so I like to bring those things up and say, okay, what's the basis for the thinking on this stuff? Should this be taken literally, or should these other things not be taken literally? You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so. The blog that I'm in the process of writing right now, I was looking at Isaiah 19. Let me see, I'm trying to find what I wrote. Regarding the altar and monument that's in the center and on the border of Egypt.
Right.
And looking through the commentaries, like the Pulpit Commentary or Matthew Henry or any number of others, most of them were saying that this was fulfilled in the days of Onias, and they give their reasons for it, and they give, when you look at the closing few verses of the chapter 19, talks about Assyria and Egypt being connected with a highway, and they are joined together and with Israel and worshiping Yahuwah. And it's like one big happy family between Egypt, Israel, and Babylon.
Right.
And they give all kinds of interesting ideas for how that was supposedly fulfilled, around the first century or thereabouts. And I'm going, well, that doesn't work for me. I mean, there may be some things that could have been fulfilled, just like if you look at Matthew 24, or probably more so Luke 21, you can see, especially in Luke, a fair amount of things that were fulfilled at 70 AD. But you get to a certain point in the passage where you're going, okay, I can see that being fulfilled at 70 AD, but the rest of this, no, it hasn't been fulfilled yet. So I do believe that there are types and shadows, that there are levels of fulfillment, that you can look at some of these things and say, okay, yeah, it was, a fair amount of this was fulfilled in 70 AD, but there's a whole lot more to come. It's going to probably be an amped up repeat of that. Or like in Isaiah 19, maybe this has been fulfilled in a day of, the days of Onias. But if I keep reading, if I keep going through the following chapters, I start seeing other things that sync up with end-time events, like in Isaiah 21, Babylon has fallen, has fallen. Well, that seems to be a really good pair with Revelation 18:2, Babylon has fallen, Right. And in Isaiah 24, the earth is all messed up and, shaken up and reeling to and fro like a drunkard, and et cetera. It's like, well, I can't point to any time in history where a fair amount of Isaiah 24, I can't see that it's ever happened. It appears to be stuff, far off in the future. And so, to your point, there are lenses that we do look through and ways that we do interpret based on what we've been taught to believe. But yes, I do question. I mean, I'm like, well, okay, I can see some of this being fulfilled, but not all of it. So then should I take the parts that I don't see fulfilled as allegorical or symbolic when the previous stuff I took literally, or should I take it all literally and say that this hasn't happened yet, or maybe both? And I think there's something to be said for both, that you can and maybe should do it that way. But as I was looking into this with relation to what I was talking about, the altar and the monument in the center of Egypt and on the border, there are things in history that are very minor that, like the Pulpit Commentary and others point out, that I could see as, a very minor fulfillment of that. But on a greater scale, much greater scale, I believe that the Great Pyramid of Giza is the perfect fulfillment of that passage. And I've gone on to write more about it, but when you get into the numbers, the measurements, I mean, that pyramid is one amazing structure that really testifies to the planet that we live on, all about it, the distance from the sun, the moon, our place in the solar system. I mean, it's like it's all there. And so, and part of that, and this is what caught my attention about your post, and I'll let you comment if you have anything to say about this, but that originally the Great Pyramid of Giza, it had 144,000 encasing stones. And when I realized that, I'm going, okay, this just gives it more significance to me that it is a monument that God had placed there. Now, who built it? That's another discussion. But there's something about this 144,000, and I decided to play that Quest for Truth commentary because we're dealing with Revelation 7, which of course introduces the 144,000, but it's in the context of virgin males. I'm still kind of on that track from each of the 12 tribes, and when I see two censuses taking place in the Book of Numbers, and then another situation where they have 1,000 from each tribe, specifically being tasked for war, I began to think that there's a much greater purpose for the 144,000 than what we've typically been taught in church today. Do you have a comment on that and possibly any relation or anything you may know on the Great Pyramid?
Well, on what you were just saying, that 1,000 from each tribe was sent out to take vengeance upon the Midianites, who this is going to go back to Balaam and Balak and the idolatry and fornication thing. And they were led by Pinchas or Phineas, the warrior priest.
Yeah.
And so that's going to tie in to Revelation 19, basically. Just there's so many aspects of this stuff. Also, the astronomical or astrological aspects of this as well. And when you talk about the pyramids and Orion's belt and some of those things, because I think that that is a whole missing component that is not normally discussed much, that should be. That on page 1, verse 14, that the sun, moon, and stars were given for Otot and Moedim, for signs and for seasons. And it says in Psalm 19 that the heavens declare the glory of Elohim, the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. And it's actually, Paul quotes from, I believe it's verse 4 there, in Romans chapter 10, when he's asking his questions, how will they know except somebody be sent, and how will they hear unless somebody preach, and so on. He says, but I say, have they not heard? And he says, yes, for their words have gone basically through the ends of the world, or something like that. He's quoting from Psalm 19 that's talking about the heavens declaring the glory of God. This is what Abraham saw in Genesis 15 when he's told, I believe he's forget where he's at, but he's told, go out of your tent, Abraham, and look up to the heavens. So shall your seed be. Mm-hmm. And so we think it says basically, and count the stars if you can. Count the stars. So shall your seed be. We could interpret that as recount the story of the stars if you can, Abraham. So shall your seed be. Because Paul also quotes this in Galatians 3, and he basically tells us, I'm paraphrasing, notice that it doesn't say seeds as in many, but singular seed being the Messiah. Go outside of your tent, Abraham, and look up to the heavens. Remember the story of the stars. So shall your singular seed, the Messiah, be. And Abraham believed, and it was accounted unto him for righteousness. The gospel is written in the stars.
Yes, it is.
And it's not the 2,000-year-old gospel, because Abraham had the gospel preached to him. Galatians 3, Hebrews 4:2 said that the children of Israel had the gospel preached to them. Revelations refers to the everlasting gospel. And Job has an awful lot to to say about that subject too. And we can even, since we understand that it's not the devil that put those stars up there and arranged them, that it's the Creator that did that, and we've had people corrupt and pollute everything, including that. But when we begin to look at those stories up there, such as Orion, and who is basically this mighty one, and with the belt that's known as Pleiades, or the 7 stars, and he had 7 stars in his right hand.
Yeah, Pleiades is in the bull, which Orion is facing. It's in the head of the bull. Taurus.
And guess where the 7 assemblies were believed to have been in Revelation? On the mountains of Taurus.
On the mountains of Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it say? I mean, it talks about.
It doesn't say. That's not going to say that in the scripture. That apparently that area in Asia there was within something known as the mountains of Taurus.
Oh.
And so within Taurus we have this Orion and the 7 stars, and so we see one like the Son of Man with 7 stars in his hand, and it describes this golden belt that he has on as well.
Mountains of Taurus, looking it up.
And that will also, the arrangement of the pyramids, from what I understand, has something connected to Orion, from what I recall as well.
Well, I mean, they are certainly arranged with the belt. That's pretty easy to discern. Yeah, look at that. I'm looking up. I just did a Google search. The Taurus Mountains are the lower portion of Turkey. Huh.
And of course, as I've heard you comment before, Revelation 12, and behold a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, upon her head a crown of 12 stars, and below her feet the moon. And so there's a lot of this imagery throughout Revelation that is going to pertain to, remember, the heavens declare the glory of God. And there's a lot of these themes in here that we've just sort of been, the well has been poisoned against a lot of these things previously by a very superstitious church system.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got my gears turning.
You get mine going too, because you guys have some. You're a think out of the box type person, and that's really refreshing.
Yeah, I don't fit into too many boxes.
Well,
get me out of here. I need to think outside the box.
Right. I was going to mention, since you were talking about Revelation 14, and I don't think I ever got to my point on that there's Paul, or the writer of Hebrews, makes a strong comparison and contrasting with Sinai and Mount Zion. He also does this in Galatians, talking about that Jerusalem and her children are in bondage as this day, and he talks about the Hagar and connects her back. He says these things are an allegory, that Sarah and Hagar and their sons are an allegory, and ties it into Mount Sinai and Mount Zion. See, that's one of the problems with the Messianic movement. They think Sinai is the destination, but it's not. Zion is the destination.
Right.
And so when we get to Revelation 14, understanding that Mount Sinai is going to pertain to Shavuot, or Feast of Weeks, we see in verse 4 there, they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits. Now, a lot of times when we think about first fruits, many people, would refer to the festival within unleavened bread, the waving of the barley sheaf. But
right.
technically, biblically, that is referred to as the head of the harvest. But biblically, it refers to Shavuot as first fruits. And I think that's in the book of Numbers, that it calls it first fruits. And so there's some heavy first fruits imagery in that passage.
Wow, what's the name of your ministry?
Well, I don't really call it a ministry. I do a radio program, Paradigm Radio, and we also I put a lot of my Torah teachings, and lately I mentioned we've been going through the book of Revelation, and we just finished Revelation 13 this past week, and I just loaded part 2 of that up earlier today. And so we got into some of these topics that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I'm going to have to draw this show to a close, but we need to talk some more, my friend.
Yeah, I'd enjoy that a lot, because I think you'd give me a lot to think about, and that's what I like.
Right.
I enjoy having my mind challenged and even beliefs challenged, and things that cause me to go back and search things out and to learn more.
Yeah, same here. Are we friends on Facebook?
I'm not on Facebook, but I will. I'll tell you what. Here in a second, I'll put my email and stuff on here for you, and I'd like to stay in contact with you.
Yeah, please do. Send me your contact information, and we'll see what we can do to have a longer session where we can really talk about some cool stuff.
Hey, that'd be great.
All right, brother. Yeah, send me that, and that'll be awesome.
Okay, very good. I'll keep listening, and I'll have to go back and check out your Revelation archives.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
All right.
Thank you, Keith.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah, same to you. Shabbat shalom. And thank you, everybody, for listening to the virtual house church tonight. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here next time on the Revolutionary Radio Project. Good night, everybody.